Yo, what's up, fam? Welcome back to the Dream Show, the Dream Lounge. Got part 3 of my interview series with Gay Lube Oil, one of the red pills and the manosphere's most extreme alpha males, author of the best-selling new book, The Pillars of Wisdom. You guys have seen it on a couple episodes I've done with them so far. Today, from this Manosphere Bible, we're going to be reviewing Chapter 3, Beyond Bourgeois Sexual Strategy. Basically, we've been talking about banging semi-autistic phone-tarded sluts, Tinder skankaroos, Tinderellas, and kind of navigating today's dystopian shithole of a sexual marketplace. So without further ado, please help me welcome back to the show our infamous guest, Gay Lube Oil.
I'm so glad to be back. I love your intro.
Thanks, man.
Love every moment of it.
Oh, the video. Yeah.
Amazing.
Yeah, I love just triggering the shit out of people and the lovers and the haters, in the media and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah. One of the things I was thinking about was the manosphere needs the feminists back, because that's what drove our publicity for a long time. And
you mean them bitching at it and stuff?
Like they're the ones who made the red pill big. They're the ones who made the Donald big. And they're really the fuel behind the whole thing.
Mm-hmm.
And they're good for us because we respond to them, but we're also good for them because we give them stuff to write books about, right?
Yeah. And blog posts and articles.
And blog posts and stuff. And so we're good for each other's careers. And once that conversation ended, it really ended the manosphere.
Yeah, so, it was a big linchpin in killing it. And as you probably know, the manosphere term even came about from feminists in the late 2000s, as the legend goes.
I really feel like we need to reach out to them and say, look, we're on different sides or whatever, but we need each other for publicity to move up.
Yeah, for red meat for them to bitch about, and even vice versa. I mean, they do like
vice versa, exactly.
Kill all men, and all men are evil, and this kind of shit.
I miss them because they just pumped so much fuel into the whole thing.
Yeah.
So I don't know.
As you saw in that video, I was able to use a lot of the mainstream media, the ones who are especially feminist, pro-feminist. I just drove them insane with this kind of red meat with Make Women Great Again, unlimited babies, enslave all women, this kind of stuff.
But I think you.
Go ahead.
Sorry. I think you're really good for their careers too, because if you start looking through their books, they always talk about us.
Yeah.
So I think
as you might have seen, there's actually several government reports and NGO nonprofit reports that specifically name me and my events and other manosphere, figures and stuff. All these two are from DHS, either directly or indirectly. There was one that came out, for example, earlier this year. I think I sent you the PDF document. It was from an NGO that received $7 million from DHS, an actual grant you can go research.
Right.
And they were targeting 10 manosphere channels, including 21 Studios, running ads against them, trying to drive men away from those channels towards the Good Man Project, which is beta male crap, super beta male crap.
I think things like the Good Man Project or Jordan Peterson is bad for us economically, but true radical feminists are good for us because so I don't know, at some point I think we should call them to try and get the fire going again. I think it'll be good for their careers.
Yeah. There's got to be a way to bait
them. Yeah. So let's go.
Yeah. Let's review your Bible.
I think you can just call them and say, hey, listen, let's go. So yeah, Beyond Bourgeois Sexual Strategy. So first I want to define the I want to define the word bourgeois, right? So before the French Revolution, there was no bourgeois, and bourgeois it's a citizen. It's a citizen of a nation, and the bourgeois lives off of private property, private consumption, and they define themselves through commodities, right? So a peak bourgeois sexual strategy would be the mall dating of the 2000s.
Yeah.
Where those women go to the mall, and at the mall, they buy themselves an identity, right? They can't define themselves through objects anymore. They have to define themselves through Instagram or their Discord channels. right now, they're not defining themselves through objects. They're defining themselves through beliefs or pronouns. So in the 2000s, you would dress a certain way to attract a certain kind of woman. So if you're wearing PacSun, she's wearing PacSun, that kind of situation. But now you're in a postmodern age where they have a fragmented identity, and you have to keep their attention span through basically high attention TikTok gimmicks.
These chicks are not even going to the mall anymore. Like you talk about in your book, the malls either don't exist. Your internet's kind of lagging, by the way, or mine. I don't actually know. But these, like, the malls don't even exist anymore, so the chicks don't go to them. The malls are closed down, the stores are closed down. Plus, the middle class is like it's been collapsing ever since like 2007. So they don't have any money anyway to go to the mall and drop like $500 on bullshit. And you bring up a good point that you used to be able to go do this. I did this, and a lot of the early PUAs and the manosphere went and did this. It was one of the top places to go hit on girls, was at the mall. And I did this, I approached probably a couple hundred women at malls in Florida back in 2007, 2008, way back in the day. But it's all dead now. And you're right. They're just at home on TikTok jerking themselves off, or charging their phone, or playing on their phone, or posting booty pics, especially if they're a conservative woman trying to limit their booty pics, but still post some to rope in these beta males and shit.
So before at the mall, they would go buy an identity. And after they buy an identity, they have to buy a boyfriend that matches their identity, right?
Yeah.
So the old PUA, it's how do you market yourself like a mall kiosk boyfriend or something, right? Right now, there's something called reality of the virtual, where they really exist online, and offline it's dead. They don't exist. So the action doesn't happen. Basically, they won't talk to you in person. I'm talking about Western women in the United States metropolis. They really won't talk to you. The interaction in person is you'll get a number. Then it goes online. That's where she exists as a human being. Okay, if that continues, then she'll start posting you online to substantiate her online persona. So fundamentally, the same way that she has a dress to look a certain way in front of her friends, you're an object that she's going to present online. So I mean, I'm not blaming women here. Men are going to do the same thing too. They want a big butt girlfriend to brag to their online whatever, right? But I guess what I'm saying is they're playing for the online world. Yeah. They're not playing for the offline world like they did 20 years ago. Yeah.
Let's pause on this, because you're talking about a major cultural shift specific to the United States, maybe Canada and stuff. And you're right. There was no online world in 2007. There was a little bit of MySpace, a little bit of Facebook, but it was 1/10, if that, of what we see today. But another point in your book you bring up, I don't know if it's in chapter 3, the section we're looking at today, but I'd like you to expand on it anyway. You talk about these different avatars people have online, whether it's a chick or a dude, whether it's some random person or an influencer, so to speak. And they have, like, their personality is segmented into multiple faces. They have their Instagram face, they have their Facebook face, they have their real life face, like you're talking about still a little bit. They have their Twitter one, they have their maybe a YouTube one if they have a small channel. I forget what you call it, but it's basically like they're dividing their psychology up into these different online avatars, each one of which is pretty fake and gay. It might reflect a little bit of who they are, but it's just really bizarre and kind of Blade Runner crap. So I don't know if I'm explaining it right, but there's definitely a section in your book about this.
So what I would tell you about that is, before that happened online, it happened off. So people would have a yoga persona, and then they would have a supermarket persona, right? And so they were already fragmented. The fragmentation started long ago, right? It's just that because online is faster, they can have more fragments like that, right? I mean, if you go back to Barbie, right? Barbie has different outfits for different genres, right? So most women, that's how they are. There's Dr. Barbie or swimsuit Barbie. And so the thing is, they're looking for a boyfriend that fits into these genres. The same way that, let's say, you're on YouTube, TikTok, Twitter, and we have to change the format of our videos. Same exact thing.
Yeah, I like the way you put it with the Barbie dolls. That actually makes a lot of sense.
I would say, I mean, I'm not, everything that I'm saying right now, it's not just about gender. Like men are going to do it and women are going to do it, right? So if you look at the manosphere, right, they're going to go from conservative father to whoremonger, and they're going to flip between the two identities, right? So the men are really behind women on this one, like 10 years, right? So, or like if you go back to a conservative rally, right? They're going to act like conservative fathers, and then immediately after that, it's prostitutes, right? So that's really.
Why do you think? Yeah. Why do you think men are 10 years behind? Like George Orwell, used to say in his books, 1984, I think, that women are more prone to propaganda. They're more susceptible to it and more eager to kind of slurp up the state propaganda. Is that your view? Is there another element to what you think about it?
I think women are more susceptible to group pressure. Okay. And so they just respond to that group pressure more. Because as a man, if you're socially excluded, it's not good, but you're okay. If you're a woman and you're socially excluded, like if you're a woman and you're slut shamed, you get cut off from resources completely, right? So they really fit in. So if you look at the pandemic or BLM, they really snap to it. And that's just a certain vulnerability of being a woman.
This is a good example, by the way, here on my blog, The Dream Lounge. Sterling Cooper is a notorious red pill alpha male. He teaches you how to be a sex god and this and that. And now he's a Christian too. He's a very devout Christian. He's a Bible thumper. He'll teach you how to bang your Christian wife. But in reality, he's a former gay porn star who made over 500 gay videos for homosexual men. And he gets really upset whenever you post this on his Twitter and stuff. I put a whole essay out about it today, actually.
Well, I think, okay, I mean, we're pivoting the conversation to something else. If you want to understand homosexual men, they need a conservative structure to rebel against, right? And so for there to be a homosexual underground, there has to be a Christian above ground. And so they're really, really upset about the decline of the church, because for them to be in the basement, which they like, there has to be someone above in the church, right? So I would say don't see it necessarily as a contradiction. See it as part of the gay identity. If you look at the Village People, they would have these very masculine roles, and then they'd be gay. So they like the two parts. So you have to understand that he can't just be a basement gay, right? He needs both sides of it. He needs a full plate, right?
I looked at it from a business perspective. I thought it was kind of disturbing and disgusting, but also genius, because he was working both angles. On the front end on YouTube, he's got a following, and he is marketing to heterosexual, mostly alpha males or wannabe alpha males, beta males, basically. And then on the back end, he was making gay videos on OnlyFans to market to the homosexual beta males. So he's working like both markets at the same time.
He's a gay man who's working both angles.
Yeah.
So you see, so you just have to see that his Christianity isn't a contradiction to his homosexuality. It's a necessary piece. It's like if you're a model and then you're bulimic and you throw up, right? Like you need the light side and you need the dark side. So I guess a lot of these people, like, you call them out for their contradiction, but you have to understand that most systems function through a contradiction. If he didn't have a vent, if he just did gay stuff over and over and over again, he'd tire himself out. He needs to flip to the other side and kind of balance himself out. I'm just trying to give you a very easy psychoanalysis.
You talk about that a lot in your book, this kind of duality where it looks like fraud or a contradiction, and it is a fraud, but a huge amount of the world operates like this. And that's a big red pill that a lot of guys don't understand. You know, they get really upset at me when I expose someone that they love and they look up to, some sort of hero for them on the internet. And in reality, this guy hates men, or he's a homosexual kind of predator or whatever, or even a child photographer, a child stalker. And people don't get the amount of the huge disconnect that's going on here, but it's actually very common. Like, they're always surprised at what I post, and they get so mad. But this is just the truth. It's just how the world works right now.
I mean, if you want to, like, if you start reading the biographies of gay men, this is normal for gay men. You know, if you read their books, you know, like they're all gonna do this. So this is normal for them. And they like the intrigue of being closeted. Like, that's really exciting for them, right? So I guess, like, for us, like, there's a light side and a dark side, right? So the light side is this, and then the dark side is we should call up some feminists, ask them to write a hit piece on us, and then you'll sell more conventional tickets and I'll sell more books. You kind of need both angles, and it just kind of comes down to how you're going to do it, right? The Republican convention, and then boom, the strip club, the gay guy, and then boom, the church. You know, for us, helping men, and then boom, calling up a feminist saying, hey, I wrote some crazy stuff. You want to write a book about me? Because then my book's going to move and your book's going to move. Boom. So you just, it's like a battery. You need that polarity. And with that polarity, then the current can flow. And historically, that's how things work, you know?
Yeah.
But yeah, let's go back to dating. Like, what points do you think I should address?
Let's talk about the chapter called Chemotherapy Hand Job. What's that chapter about?
I love that. So in the red pill, there's this very idealized view of courting a woman. And it's very like, you gotta look good, you gotta get money, looks, game, status, all of this stuff, right? But you have to understand that there's these local economies where things are gritty. Chemotherapy hand job is about two people in a chemotherapy ward, and a guy got a hand job for a Snickers bar because they weren't allowed to eat Snickers bars because they would throw it up from their chemotherapy. And it was this dark, negative situation. So I guess what I would say is sex isn't just about women choosing you because you're doing something good. Sex a lot of the times can be an escape. And so a lot of times women are going to use you for the escape. And some of the craziest sex stories happen not out of something positive, but as out of something compensatory. Sorry. So I have another article about Ukraine, right? And so in the beginning of the Ukraine war, a lot of men could get laid because there's desperate women. So I guess I want to bring it back to economics, right? When we talk about sexual market, we're talking about a market like a stock market, and sometimes there's a flash sale. And if there's a flash sale, it's not because of something good happened, right? Like, you could think, I'm buying this stock because it's high value, right? Or you could say, I'm buying this stock because everyone's panicking. There's blood in the streets, and because there's blood in the streets, it's time to buy. And so any market functions sexual market. So with regards to chemotherapy hand job, sometimes you're in a bad place, sometimes she's in a bad place, and you can coalesce around that. And instead of looking for an ideal time to buy, look for a crisis where there's a sale. And that's how markets work. Welcome to capitalism.
Yeah. Talk to me about the chapter about how the fuck you say it, totalizing her psyche with your dick. I find that chapter really compelling and something that a lot of beta males, I think, really don't understand.
Totalizing.
Yeah.
So there's in psychoanalysis, there's something called a master signifier, right? So there is a fixed thing around which everything else spins like a sun. And so when women don't have a boyfriend, if she doesn't have a boyfriend and she doesn't have a strong identity, you're going to see her float between identities. Boom, 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 right? If a woman starts identifying as conservative, like let's say red state rural conservative, she wants a cowboy boyfriend because that cowboy boyfriend fixes her identity. A really good example, I'm Russian, is when a lot of Eastern European women moved to the United States, they wanted to be American. And so they would get an American husband or boyfriend and build their life around it. And then they would have an American house. So just understand that the same way that when you decorate your house, okay, you have a Trump flag, right? And through that, you create a Republican space, right? Or let's say I want a conservative cigar lounge. I need a brown leather couch to really set the tone. She can use you as that object to set the tone, to totalize, to anchor into this new identity. And one of the problems with, let's say, America going downhill is if America does well, it's cool to be a Republican. If America does shit, it's not cool to be a Republican anymore. And she's going to look for another anchor to orbit around.
Yeah. Now, with totalizing her psyche with your dick, though, you also seem to, I think there was commentary in your book about, can you hear me?
So a lot of is she sexually attracted to you? Later.
There's just a huge lag. But anyway, in your book, you talk about totalizing her psyche with your dick as kind of a mechanism to dominate her psyche, but also push back against the massive legal landscape that works against you. The whole system, as you've said in your book numerous ways, is against you as a man. Your whole life, your whole identity, all of your masculinity. So basically, if I understood your position in the book right, it's dominating her mind with your dick as a key to her heart, and then you can build a better relationship basically doing that. Am I interpreting that correctly from the book?
It depends on what the cultural environment is. If the cultural environment is neutral, I think sex is going to be enough to hold her together. But once the cultural environment flips against you, sex isn't going to be enough to keep her psychologically on you. And a lot of it is going to be thematic, right? So if, let's say, Trump wins and you have a big Republican room like you do right now, she can feel like she's with a winner, right? But you have to understand that these tools, they will work up to a certain point. But if things get really bad, no tools will work, right? Mm-hmm. And what I'm worried about is this election is going to be a complete disaster. And a lot of the social structures that men use to support their masculine leadership are going to get eroded, right? Like you could be the most amazing special forces operator. If you don't have a good logistics chain, you're done, right? And so that logistics chain behind men, behind American conservative men, to me, it feels like it's being eroded. And once it gets eroded, those relationships will also get eroded. So depending on how, if you bring a lot of cultural significance, psychological significance, you can hold her down. Betas don't, but understand that there could be a huge tide. Like, let's say you're a really masculine Iraqi man. You're really cool, right? But then boom, the Americans invade. You're not going to hold her down. You're not going to hold her down with your dick. You're not going to hold her down with the culture, right? Let's say pre-Great Depression, right? You're a cool guy, whatever, blah, blah, blah. And then boom, you have like a Roosevelt America, right? You have some kind of thing like that. So just understand that no matter how well you do as a man, you could be culturally and economically rug pulled and it won't even matter.
Yeah, it's a fair point, man. It really is.
So I know it's not super positive, but if you look at men in other countries, that happened. And I know American men haven't felt it before, which is why I want to warn them that your individual masculinity is only going to buy you so much, right? Like, if you're a hard worker, you can make more money. But if they crank up the inflation, it doesn't matter how hard you work, right? So if you're a good husband, good boyfriend, hot, great sex, that's cool. But they can always rug pull you culturally. And that's already been happening.
And for the viewers tuning in that maybe don't know you or haven't seen the previous episode, your view is that American culture in totality is like in a death spiral. I mean, you think it's toast, it's cooked. If I'm understanding it right?
So, yeah. So if you think like British culture has been in a death spiral, right? So you could say that England is 10 years in the future. And does anyone want to march around with a Union Jack? Like, what if you were British and you had a big Union Jack? Would that buy you anything? It's done, right? So a lot of those British men will move to Dubai and build an expat identity, and they'll build a new cultural masculinity to sell to women. Brands die, right? And instead of running a brand into the ground, sometimes it's good to who's this gay guy? What's his name? Sterling Cooper?
Yeah, Sterling Cooper.
So that's what Sterling Cooper does, right? So he had his gay porn masculinity. And then that brand wasn't going well for him. And then he moved into a Christian thing, right? I guess now that you have him up on screen, you can blame him for being a homosexual man, but you can also say, look, like, the Christians are so desperate, they don't know their scripture at all, which is why this guy can even enter that space.
Exactly. And they're super naive and gullible, and they get taken advantage of all the fucking time by people like this. It's pathetic. It's pitiful.
Could this have happened 50 years ago? No. So what I'm going to say is I'm going to defend him. I'm going to say, look, a gay man's going to be a gay man, and these are typical gay man antics, for better or worse. It's just that now that the Christian church is so weak that he can enter them, gay pun.
Yeah. No, it is. It's pathetic, and it's going to keep happening too. And it's their fault, I think, is what you're saying too. Like, he's lying to them. He's committing this kind of fraud from our perspective, but they're responsible for swallowing these lies, pun intended.
Pun intended. I mean, the thing is, if you're a Christian and you want to dig through the Bible, you need a really good reading comprehension. So if they can't see past his lies, how well can they read their own Bible?
Yeah.
So because the Bible is a serious work that requires very serious digging, and they can't even dig in this, let's say, outwardly homosexual man.
I mean, there's a joke among Protestants for Catholics, like, when's the last time a Catholic even opened a Bible? So a lot of them don't even have a Bible. They don't open it. They don't read it. I don't think it's necessary. I don't think it's useful. It's not totally valueless in my view, but yeah, they don't even care. Even when they say that they profess that they believe these things, but they don't have the first fucking clue about it.
Well, the Bible's important for them because that's their master signifier. That's what they totalize around.
Yeah.
Right. And so, Sterling Cooper can totalize around his sexual activity. And then if your sun or what you totalize around isn't solid, that orbit's going to get broken and you're going to spiral off into some nonsense. So I guess that I would say, if you feel the American culture isn't doing well, you need to retotalize around something that's more stable. That's first piece of advice. Second, there's going to be women from cultures that are breaking apart.
Yeah.
And you could get a big fire sale on those women, women from the Middle East right now, and before, women from Ukraine. So what I would say is, yes, being a strong, confident male is important. Yes, having a lot of money is really important, but you should really focus on getting those deals, because that's how capitalism is played. And the sexual marketplace takes place in the capitalist environment.
Yeah. This is just another homosexual super predator I wanted to pull up. He's a Christian pastor out in California, runs his own church, and half a dozen men came forward about 2 years ago claiming that they had been witnessing homosexual activity, having gay butt sex with him, all kinds of really hardcore stuff. But the evidence is on my channel.
The thing is, like once again, I think that's like typical behavior for a homosexual. So like, but what's the Christian side? Like they're letting him in, right?
Yep.
So, gay's gonna gay. And that's their sexual compulsion. And if they don't follow their sexual compulsion, they become weird, right? So as the way I see it from here, I don't know these people, is that they're following a typical gay trajectory. I'm not making a moral judgment on that, but the church isn't following a typical church trajectory. They're opening up to them, not just as like a member, but as a leader.
The counterpoint is that, my brother in Christ, the Catholic Church has had gay butt sex with altar boys for 1,000 years. They've been dens of sin and evil for 1,000 years. So in some ways, this is the whole Protestant point of view, why they left the Catholic Church, that it's just been filled with gays for forever, basically. And that hasn't really changed. And then you see it, of course, leak into the Protestant churches, and they do basically the same thing with even more freedom and laxity to do it.
So then maybe this is like, maybe this is just business as usual, right? And maybe we're at fault. Maybe we're the bad guys because we held them up to a certain standard, but instead they're doing what they always did, right?
Yep.
So maybe you took like a Catholic Church red pill. You see what I mean? So
I took all the red pills. No one gave me a dosage prescription, so I just took the whole bottle. And then I started liquefying them. I took your book and I liquefied it and started injecting it into my veins, just snorting that shit.
So I think you can't be in a point where you're disappointed anymore. You just got to say, like, this is the game and I'm going to play whatever game's there.
That's actually why you're articulating in a different way why I recently gave my farewell address as president of the Manosphere. Because the old Manosphere, there's no hope in like salvaging it or redeeming it or reforming it. It's far too corrupt, and it's just beyond redemption at this point. It needs to be burned down intellectually and spiritually. It's not a call for violence, YouTube. But it's it really is. I don't think there's a way to fix it. There needs to be a new Manosphere. And this is probably some sort of cycle that every movement or community or organization goes through as it grows and it ages. The Christians, of course, as you know, and many others watching, that it's just gotten bigger and bigger over 2,000 years. And as it gets bigger, it splinters into more branches and more denominations and more this and that. And that's what's going to keep happening as time goes on. And that was probably inevitable if you look from a higher altitude view on it.
I mean, the Manosphere, the way I understood it, was responding to the feminists, right? And once the feminists left, then the Manosphere started eating itself, right? So to restart the Manosphere, you have to understand that we don't fully understand the recipe, and we're going to have to look in places where you didn't think you're going to look, to get it going again. But
appreciate your comment, Starkiller521. The farewell address was really good. I meant to comment on Twitter. Thank you for all you've done. You're welcome, man. I appreciate it. Appreciate your support.
So what I'm sensing is we're in the beginning of a post-American expat culture, right? So there's a lot of expats right now in Mexico City, in Colombia, and if you give them time to marinate in those cultures of where they live, you're going to see a different, more global Manosphere. And in a way, like, it's kind of like being a soldier. You got to go where the action is, and the action is moving away from the US to economies that are growing. And
doesn't Mexico have a female Jew president now or something?
Mexico does, and it's an open question of which economic forces are behind that. And if Mexico is pulling back from close political ties with the US and moving more to a Chinese, Cuban, Venezuelan angle. And it's hard to really understand that. I'm not well versed in that, but people are betting. Some people are. I think a lot of countries are betting on the downfall of the U.S., including China with their upcoming invasion of Taiwan. Or I think Russia was betting on when you heard Trump say this, right? When the U.S. pulled out of Afghanistan in this sloppy way, it portrayed weakness, and Russia seized on that weakness, right? Mm-hmm. So when you see political realignments in some countries, especially countries that border the U.S., those political realignments are a symptom of the political elites or the financial elites shifting to where they think the money's going to go. So if you have, let's say, a far left Mexican president, maybe that's a bet on China, right? If you have a pro-business hyper-capitalist president, that's a bet on the U.S. improving. So I would just caution you, whoever is president of Mexico, don't think of her as such. Think of her as, how do the Mexican upper class, how can they capture the most amount of capital? And if I think she's a good avatar to go for the Chinese fentanyl money, or I don't know the machinations. I'm really far from all of that, but
you bring up a good point. I didn't really think about it previously, but it makes perfect sense. Mexico, like the U.S. and Russia and whatever, have their own oligarchy. So you have a Mexican oligarchy, you have an American oligarchy that's actually pulling the strings on a regular basis to control the country and its future.
I mean, Mexico's a big transit point into the United States, and it's the most effective transit point into the United States, right? So if you're going to bet on the American decline, then you should bet on expanded drug production and drug distribution, right? Because that's how you profit off of a decline. If you think America's going to do well, then I guess you should start funding Ford car plants, because the middle class is going to buy more cars, right? So if you see the drugs flow into the US, that means that someone up on high who has a lot of money with a lot of information does not believe in the next 5-10 years of American history, right? So you can kind of read the super elites indirectly through their financial gambles, right? So if the super rich start pulling out of the American economy, out of the American stock market, things aren't going to go well, right?
Well, so let's talk about a real life example. You probably know Warren Buffett just sold like billions and billions of stock in U.S. banks. I think Bank of America and other shit like that. He's cash rich right now. So he just dumped off, dude, I don't even know how much, like tens of billions of dollars he sold off. And, he's one of the richest people in the U.S. So this seems to be a perfect example of what you're talking about. I don't know if you followed that in the news.
So I would say, okay, so first Warren Buffett is going to sell his stuff. Okay, great. Then the economy is going to crash. Then the middle class is going to get worse. Then there's nobody for you to date, right? So if you start seeing the beginning of the cascade move to, a lot of my friends just moved to Dubai. I have people in Colombia. If you sense the cascade, get out early so you can invest your capital early in something else. And not only your capital, but your man hours, right? So I speak a lot better Spanish now because I've been living in Mexico. So I know we're talking about dating strategy, but dating strategy is downwind of economic strategy, right? So
and I really hate how the old manosphere was so apolitical, aeconomic, a-religious. It tried to avoid looking at any other element of culture that, like you do, that was affecting the sexual marketplace and marriage and dating and all this stuff, like as if these things don't matter, but obviously they did. And you've gotten hell for it, for just speaking these plain truths that, like, hey, the economy crashing and the middle class collapsing is actually a big fucking deal that has a direct impact on what you need to do.
Okay, so rule 0 of the red pill was keep it relevant, right? And so with this rule 0, all these important conversations that we're having today and all my articles, which have to be sold in a book because they've been scrubbed off the internet, were scrubbed off the internet by Rollo and friends, right?
Yeah.
So why are they censoring everything? Why are they not talking about economics? Because when Rollo and friends are getting jerked off by some Vegas prostitute, right, pegging specialist, he doesn't have to think about the economy. For him, sexuality is an escape. That's why a strip club is a place where people disassociate, right? So there's 2 ways of thinking about it. One, they're the ultimate alpha male and they're going to go into a male fantasy where they disassociate. Fine. And we can't stop them from conceptualizing that way. Or the other way is you say, look, sexuality is part of society and it's all integrated. It's all totalized, right? That's our way. But our way is going to offend the blue pill betas, the people who don't want to see the big picture.
Yeah. Let's zoom back into your book. You have a section in, chapter 3, and it's how to stuff your white meat into Asian girls.
Perfect.
I'm married now myself, but if I was not, how would I stuff my white meat into Asian bitches?
So interracial dating is actually really interesting because it's dating on hard mode because you're navigating the gender dynamic and you're navigating a culture dynamic, right? And so you have to think, as a white man, what kind of white man are Asian women looking for, right? To flip it around, what kind of Chinese restaurant is the white man looking for, right?
But hang on, I want to be the devil's advocate here, and we talked about this, I think, a little bit previously. Some people say that black girls love white meat, big white meat, and therefore white guys have it on easy mode if they like black women. Maybe they have yellow fever and like Asian girls, and there's a lot of Asian girls who do love white guys. What's your view on that? That certain races of women are going to love white guys, your white meat?
I'm not saying that they're not attracted. I'm saying to what kind of white guy are they attracted to, right? So if you think of yourself as a white restaurant, right? What kind of dishes are you serving, right? A lot of Asian women are going to be using you, the white guy, to status signal to their Asian family and to their Asian friends, like, haha, I'm rebelling, I'm with a white guy. So if you're looking for Asian women, you need to play to that preference, right? The Asian woman isn't just an object who you scoop up at the supermarket, right? She has her own agenda. And a lot of times, I went to a very Asian university, it's to fuck with her dad. She really wants to mess with her dad and say, haha, gotcha, dad, I got a white guy, right? It's to mess with her her ex-boyfriend in high school, right? So how do you package yourself to reach that market? And I guess for me, when I wrote this book, I felt that interracial dating wasn't written about, and it wasn't written about in an advanced method that addresses other cultures, and I hope in a fair way. But I would say, to answer the question, how to get Asian girls wear a plaid shirt, be conventionally white, hamburgers, football, present a very white image that she can use to flex to whatever social circle she's part of.
It's funny because what you're saying is almost like a meta game that guys, beta males, have no clue on. They've always been, as you know, interested in like tips and tricks and say this one thing to change her behavior immediately, and that's been going on for 20 fucking years in the manosphere. But you're looking at it from a much bigger picture, how to adjust your persona to specifically target what you want, like Asian bitches or black girls or whatever you want. And I think that's going to work for guys, and it's been undersold, if anything, in the manosphere.
Well, there's 2 points, right? You're attracted to certain kind of women, so you're going to be playing a certain game, right? But they're playing a social game. They're dating you not just because they're sexually attracted to you, but because there's a big social ecosystem that they're playing with their friends, right? and you're in the same way that maybe you need her for sexual or social satisfaction, she needs to use you as a pawn in her game. It could be white girl brunch. It could be Asian girl, I'm messing with my dad. It could be black girl, I'm moving up in society. It could be all sorts of things. There's always this across cultures. There's going to be a cultural dynamic. And, in Mexico, right? Mexico has some very European people and some indigenous people. And in interracial dating, those dynamics play out. And it's always, 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 always. It's not a fringe case. So I would say that. And then the other thing I would tell you is, if you talk about dating Asian girls, if you look at the 80s, that's a different kind of non-American Asian girl. Whereas now, after I don't even know how many generations, the game keeps shifting. So I want to use your words. The meta game changes very, very quickly in dating. And this kind of boomer dating expert is really, really cancerous, because he wants to say he has the answer. And I want to say, look, I have the answer for a certain time period. The whole thing's going to explode, and then I'll have an answer for a little bit, right? If you ask me for stock tips, okay, that's valid for a week, and then we're right. So it's, as technology speeds up, as the economy speeds up, the dating game speeds up, and the lower the shelf life on that dating advice.
Yeah, and you talk about this a lot with Tinder Game. Yeah, how to fuck quasi-autistic, phone-tarded sluts. And that's the vast majority of what you're going to find on Tinder and Bumble and all these different apps and stuff. And what you call it, I think, is like plugging your dating life into cybernetic AI or something like that. But it is evolving at an incredibly rapid pace. I mean, Tinder even in 2017 is nothing like Tinder in 2020, nothing like Tinder is now. So even in this new app that has revolutionized dating, probably for the worse, but independent of how you want to judge it, it's changing every fucking year at like a faster and faster pace. So what are your views on like Tinder Game and banging Tinder sluts and these skankaroos?
I think Tinder Game, it's younger women, right? And so you have to catch those trends, whatever those are, and they're micro trends. And so if you're like a micro influencer, that gives you a short-term status that you can exploit. But keep in mind, very low shelf life. Like, you're selling ice cream on a hot summer day. Is there a demand? Yes, but very low margin of error, right? So I guess, if you want women with a larger margin of error, you can start looking overseas, because they're 10 years behind, 20 years behind. But
yeah, I was surprised when I went to Poland in 2019 for about a month total, and most of the women there had very little use of like Instagram and stuff. They weren't on it very much. If they did, they had like almost no followers. They weren't posting booty pics every week. In America in 2019, it was this constant, this flood of booty pics and all this kind of shit. And just to see that change, it's a Western country for the most part. White girls everywhere, 85% white, blah, blah, blah. And yet they weren't obsessed with social media, not nearly to the same degree as the US. And even on Tinder, it was a lot more sparse. Like there wasn't as much people on it. In Warsaw, too, like a capital city.
If you're a white girl and you post booty and then you have an OnlyFans, right? You could make a lot of money, much more than your minimum job, right? So it's the incentives. Like, you could morally judge people, but I'm going to tell you that the incentives are so powerful that they're just going to funnel people in a certain direction. And that's that. Like, any kind of moral wall building, the incentives are so powerful, they're going to flood over that wall.
Yeah, and girls aren't even in Poland. Maybe it's a little different, but in the U.S., these girls don't have any kind of moral philosophy. Their church is Netflix. It has nothing to do with any sort of Christianity or any other religion. It's all the church of Netflix and the church of woo-woo magic and the church of whatever BLM crap comes out next. Whatever social trend contagion is floating around, that's their moral foundation and framework that they work from.
So you can see it as two forces, right? There is a capitalist incentive that moves towards change and a moral foundation that works against change, right? And they're just two forces. And right now, the economics is so powerful, it's just going to sweep over everything, right? Like if the church can make a bunch of money with Sterling Cooper, boom, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what Bible, what. It's just money, right? So people are just going to follow the money, and all of these moral structures are going to get completely eroded. And that's why, like, calling out people morally, it's not going to do anything, because they're just going to follow the money. They don't care what you have to say.
Well, that's what I found with the manosphere too, and why I chose to resign as president, because no matter how many, well, I'll put it this way, I found that it's not entirely futile to roast a fraud and expose a fraud. It's that to successfully destroy somebody like Condom and Sharp, it takes an asymmetrical level of effort. It takes 100 times the audience size and the viewership and this and that of exposing somebody 1,000 times over to actually kick them off the internet and destroy their career. And this is not a sustainable level of effort. I can't do this with fucking everybody. It happened to Jack Murphy, and that was great. It happened to Condom and Sharp. But for every Condom and Sharp and Jack Murphy, Cuck Murphy, you have like literally 400 other frauds doing the exact same thing. And it's not possible. There's no one with enough money, time, effort, and attention to focus on this crap to destroy all these people. And they're just replaced anyway, like a fucking Hydra the next day that you chop their head off. So, like, what's the point?
There's no point.
It's fun. Like, I have a lot of fun doing it straight up.
I mean it's fun. There's no point, because this whole manosphere is going to crash. There's going to be a completely new sexual market. And then there's going to be new people advising people for that sexual market. My whole deal is it should start before it happens. But you know, like if you defeat Rollo and Conovan, it doesn't really matter, because they already have a timer on them.
Yeah.
You know, Rollo. Yeah.
Go ahead.
Go on. Sorry.
Oh, I was just going to say.
You said my contention is what?
My contention is similar to what you're saying, that if you destroy them, they're on a timer anyway. So I get what you're saying with that. And they're going to be replaced anyway. It's going to keep just, collapsing.
I think they're on a timer because the sexual marketplace is going to change. And so you're going to have a bunch of boomers stick to them. And then it's going to be next generation, and it's over. So Rollo's not going to adapt to TikTok, and Donovan Sharp can't read a book. So he can't adapt to anything. So you get him or you don't get him. It's like he's going to run out of gas. He does know how to fuel up with new information, so he's done.
What's aggravating to me, though, is I look at someone like you versus someone like the Fraud Father or Conovan or Sterling Cooper or whatever. There's 1,000 of these fucking guys. The ideas that you talk about and the advice that you're giving men is actually helping them unplug from a very real matrix that keeps them stuck in these trauma loops, in these goofy schmoofy beta male cycles, as you call it, and a bunch of other cyclical, insane shit. These guys that we're talking about as a counterpoint, they keep these guys stuck like they are Agent Smith in a Matrix like analogy. They're calling it. Yeah, it's disgusting and deplorable. If Hillary was here, but I really hate it, and I know it's just how the world works right now, but it's fucking pitiful to see. That's why also I had to get away from it. I'm like, this is just completely insane at this point.
Well, if you notice, their books, like my book has been censored. I just got a new publisher. So my book is controversial. It got censored. I'm printing on a different continent right now, right? So they're in front, not because they do well, but because the powers that be have chosen them, right? My Twitter got banned. Your triple black censored deluxe bad boy zone, right? So the people who secretly watch us and downregulate us, they know we're the real thing. So if you want a red pill, if you want the truth, go look to the censored people, right?
Yeah.
But I guess the good thing is we have staying power and they don't, right?
Yep.
We play for the long game and they don't. So, or like, you buy my book, it's 400 pages of useful information, or you go to a conference, your conference, you meet a lot of people, so I guess some good, some bad, but you put a lot of people there. And, even if someone's Jack Murphy and they're cultivating erotic energy from a surprising source, you do learn about masculinity and how the world works in a way, right? So I guess
really
sometimes to get things going, really shitty people get things going. Yeah.
The frauds are useful for men to learn from. I think that is a good point. And at some points, I try to make that a point and exposing these people that, like, why does Anthony cover this person being a fraud, for the fourth time over? Like, it's actually useful to learn from. You're learning how the world really works behind this illusion of the internet, where these people are playing fake alpha male giga chad patriarch. And in reality, they're literally getting blue balled by their fat fucking wives, their fat fucking mothers, their fat fucking priests, their fat fucking pastors, their fat fucking bosses. Like, their whole life, they're just controlled by these fat fucking pigs. And it's just totally insane. And you don't have to live that way. Like, there's other ways to live. I don't live like that here in America and in Florida. You don't live like that in Mexico. You're apex alpha male,
Thank you. I guess, like, you can get the red pill through a dialectic, right? So you invite Jack Murphy. He cultivates erotic energy from a surprising source. You're like, hey, yo, the world's really fucked up. And so it's, you got to move through those 3 steps, right? Yeah. And you need them to fuck up. You need them to make mistakes in order for you to teach the lesson. Effectively, until you have Jack Murphy cultivating erotic energy from a surprising source, or Rollo doing mega narcissism, or Jack Donovan being the black kid who copies the white kid's homework, right?
You mean Donovan Sharp? You said Jack Donovan.
That's how those truths are exposed, right? Sorry, there's just all these names. Yeah, so you need those fuck ups to demonstrate the red pill, right?
Yeah.
So it's Jack Donovan's a cool guy, but he won't review my book. So
I think Elliot got back to you. I think he sent a copy of your book. I think he'll take a look at it.
He didn't send me his address. I think you got to keep pushing on him. I was like, send me your address and I'll mail you a book. And then he didn't respond. And
it might just he takes some time to respond. He should get back to you.
Okay, but my point to any creator is I got a bunch of stuff. I can revolutionize the manosphere. I can give you tons of content to read about. Yeah. All sorts of new stuff. So,
well, I think maybe you should run for vice president of the new manosphere that I'm building. You might do a great job.
What I will tell you about this new manosphere is let's start talking to philosophers 100%. And then let's call the feminists and have them publicized for us again. And then we'll give them stuff to read about, because my whole career was because of feminists pushing me and writing articles about me. So turns out you needed feminism all along. That's a dialectic. There's boom, boom. And then we go there. So maybe we can call them and ask them for their services again. Because I really feel like when I ran the Donald, the Hillary Clinton people made me into this big boogie monster, made me really cool, gave me a name. And so if Piers Morgan can start crying about you again, you're just going to go straight up.
So Andrew Tate told me in person when I saw him in Miami for one of my interviews with him, that some of what he did, not all, but some of what he did with his marketing was based on what I did with Make Women Great Again, because it was so successful at weaponizing, kind of capturing and then weaponizing this feminist energy that they threw at me to dox what I was doing, try to destroy it, criticize it, undermine it. And it was really awesome. It was actually extremely useful to get in front of all these radio stations and TV interviews and TV shows and different YouTube channels just bitching about it endlessly. Sometimes Curtis Connor did a video that's got 8 million views bitching about my event and me personally and all this shit for 20 minutes. It's hilarious.
So you see how they helped you. So that's one side of it. The other thing is, if you were a woman and you had to deal with Rollo or Donovan Sharp, you would become a lesbian and a feminist, right? So that's where I see their point. So I think I don't know. I think we're gonna need to create some kind of new combination to get our rocket fuel up, so we can go up again.
That's what I'm building, man. An manosphere. Look,
you can be my. You can be my. This, yeah.
You can be my camouflage to my Biden.
Perfect,
you know what I mean? Perfect. It's gonna be dope. We'll build back better. Unburdened by what has been.
I'll be Kamala. We'll build back better.
Yeah.
Honestly, dude, we need to be unburdened by what has been, because a lot has been, and I'm so ready to be unburdened.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh my God.
And specifically when I launched this new manosphere, yet to be named, but this new manosphere, it's going to be designed to hopefully do what Make Women Great Again did, which is capture this kind of red meat, or give this red meat to these feminists and shit, and just drive all these fat women insane, and then utilize that energy incoming to build back better, to actually expand it and grow it and make sure it gets the publicity that it'll greatly benefit from.
Well, what I'm going to tell you is, when you build back better, it's going to be in a different flavor than you think, right? So there was a PUA manosphere, right, that you know of. Okay, well, first there was, remember Ultimate Seduction DVDs? I think this guy's so creative. Ross Jeffries, right?
Oh yeah, I know Ross. Yeah.
So there's Ross Jeffries. I think he's the real creator of the manosphere early on. Then there is the PUA people. Then there's us, the political people, right? And the new manosphere is going to be a completely different flavor than us, and we have to accept whatever that new flavor is, or what that new combination is. There's a lot of creators in Latin America right now that are really interested in these topics. So I'm just saying, like, when this new manosphere happens, just be ready for it to happen in a different flavor than you're used to, and that's what's going to propel the whole thing. So it's called difference in repetition. Yeah.
Let's talk about, we talked about Tinder dating a little bit. I want to get more into specifics here for the guys, so that they can, slam their meat into these Tinderella sluts. So in my experience, I actually found a really great opener off Reddit, from some viral Reddit thread years ago in the Red Pill. I saw it posted there like probably 2017. And it was a big joke. And most of it was garbage, what this guy was doing, trolling these women. But some of the one-liners he was using were fucking fantastic. And I knew that these things would actually work. And so I picked one out, and I kind of stuck with it for a while, and I found it super effective. But then on top of that, I want to know, so talk to me about how you think guys should operate on Tinder in terms of like opening. But B, how do you view dick pics? Because I'm a big no homo, but I found these to be super effective, man.
I think they're going to be threatening you with your dick pics. I think they're going to be dick pic blackmailing you.
Yeah, I don't care though.
So I'd say that I like the opener that worked for me was you start with, I'm looking for a woman who respects my emotions. And then she's like, what? Like, the fuck is this? And then you're like, because I'm tired of being used for my huge penis and muscular body, And so
that's not bad. That's pretty good.
So but it's an open question now, because I think it's just all pictures, or at least in Mexico, like, it's just all pictures, and the real conversing, like, if you go back to the 2010 early Tinder OkCupid, you would write your way into someone's underwear, right?
That's right.
But their levels of literacy are so much lower. Like, if you look at Hinge, do you have a video where you come across as cool? Do you have a voice audio where you come across as cool? The attention span is so short that be really careful about using long lines. It has to be fast and easy. Anything astrology related, because it's just,
so here's the one,
easy.
I'll share it with you and the guys watching, and I do for years this worked, and I think it would work today because it fits into this like quasi-autistic phone-tarded slut 5-second attention span. So I would literally copy and paste this. I'd match with like 50 girls over a couple days or something. And then I would just copy and paste it over and over and over and over and over again until I got banned. And then I would just make a new account. And it's very simple. I would say, I want to come all over your tits and declare you're my girlfriend. And then optionally, I might add a rose, but usually I wouldn't even do that. And it's just, I want to come all over your tits or whatever, your face, and declare you're my girlfriend. You're just going to pick face, tits, butt, one of those, and just spam that to all these women. And chicks fucking respond to this extremely well. Some of them, it was very polarizing, essentially. So some girls would get angry. A few would not respond, but mostly they would just respond pretty positively, to my surprise. And it would be much easier to get them off of there, to get their phone number like immediately, and then boom, dick pic every time. Dick pic, dick pic, dick pic. And it just cut out so much like conversing, even the little bit that they might respond to. The dick pics were just like nuclear weapons, as I found it.
So I guess you gotta polarize fast.
Yeah,
you gotta polarize real fast. And like you, they don't like you. Any telemarketer is gonna say you want to polarize, and you got to move them into a sale. So that's what I would say. So I would say very good, but you got to cater to that short attention span. And I feel like there you are catering to that short attention span. You have to cater to the media that you're in, and we're in the most short format imaginable.
This guy nails it. Nice guys finish last, bad boys finish on your face. A woman of that, brother.
Perfect.
From Trends.
I have an article on that where obviously that blackface is incredibly racist, but whiteface is anti-racist because it's the opposite of blackface. And I have a formula for increasing your seminal load.
Oh yeah, I've read it. Yeah.
In the book. Yeah. It's unfair. So I guess if you're going to be using your pickup lines, you got to deliver. And that's how you're going to deliver. That's another sexual strategy right there. So we got the first part with Anthony making a promise of delivering DNA. And the second one is, how can you maximize on your promise with sunflower lecithin, zinc, and pygenium husk.
Yeah.
So you and me are very synergistic.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Our administration is going to be great, in the new manosphere. It's going to be wonderful. So talk to me. Oh shit! Just drop the fucking thing.
Amazing.
Talk to me about dragging women into the shadow realm with your demon dick. That's a section of your book, a chapter.
Okay, yeah. So it is a section of my book. So we talked about sexual strategy. We talked about economics. I want to start talking about religion a little bit. And so when you look at pagan religion, and when you look at occult practices, sexuality is very strong as a way to as a meditative practice, or if you're religious, to connect to the other side, right? And so if you look at people like Aleister Crowley, or what the pagans would do is they would have sex rituals, right? So what I wanted to expose people to, regardless of whether or not they're religious, or regardless of if they've considered the mystical dimension, is that through very powerful sexual enter into different meditative states. And if you look at Aleister Crowley, who's just a full-blown Satanist, the way he would get inspired is through these drug orgies, right? If you look at someone like P. Diddy and all of Hollywood, I think a lot of their creativity comes from a mixture of sexuality and drugs, right? So since we are talking about sexuality, I wanted to write an article that says, okay, if you have intense sexual experiences under certain parameters, you can be hopefully divinely inspired, but alternatively demonically inspired. And that is a practice. And there is a tantric yoga sexuality where people have sex in these very difficult to maintain positions. And through this intense physical exertion, they achieve different psychological states, which can help them in their creative endeavors, right? So a lot of the Hollywood movies, I'll bet you P. Diddy and Prince use sexuality to inspire their work. Obviously, there can be like a very dark negative side of it. But
yeah,
that like that. So I guess that. So there's an Aleister Crowley, there's a Julius Evola, sex magic, and that's always been part of it since before Christianity. So that and I was trying to explain it in a way that audiences that don't know about those occult rituals could understand. If you look at Eyes Wide Shut, right? So now we know that stuff happens, right? Eyes Wide Shut happens all the time. The celebrities are doing Eyes Wide Shut stuff. Why? Because they can attract certain energies through sexual acts, sometimes very dark sexual acts, and that's how a lot of those movies are written, and that's why they will never stop doing those things, Bohemian Grove, stuff like that, because they get so much inspiration off of it. The same way you can write music on cocaine or all sorts of drugs, you can do it off of these rituals.
There's another section in your book, I think, related to this.
So, I mean, what I'm saying is that's out there, and I haven't seen anyone in the manuscript. Go on.
Yeah, it's just there's a lot of video lag, but
I'm with
there's
you.
another section of your book. It's called Talk to me about this section. The most chivalrous thing you can do for American women is anal. Why anal?
So that's an argument on abortion, right? Because and so American women love abortion if you have sex in that configuration. So I guess that maybe you're saving them abortion money, but it's a very pessimistic article, and people don't talk about abortion enough. But you have to understand that this Hollywood lifestyle that's advertised is built on abortion. All these dresses, all these purses, all these brunches, they need a big pile of fetuses to keep running. And as soon as the abortions stop, the Sex and the City girl lifestyle also stops, right? So there's a hidden cost to this Sex and the City girl lifestyle, and that hidden cost is abortion. And that's why there's so many Planned Parenthood. I'm categorically against abortion. I'm religiously against abortion. And, I guess it was kind of a cynical thing to write. But on the other side, like, however I can get my anti-abortion thing done. I mean, I don't know if you've had friends like this, but I know a lot of would-be fathers who had their children aborted, right? So, and I think a lot of men don't know how to talk about it. It's very hard. So if I could do it in a silly sexual way, at least we can conversation. So you have to understand that sexuality, you can think of it in terms of pleasure, but you could also think of it as who has the right to determine what the next generation is. And there's a lot of sexuality games going on right now, and I'm worried about who's going to be born into the next generation. Obviously, I have no control over it, but my goal is to at least start that conversation. Whether I had that conversation in a respectful way or whatever, maybe I didn't, and I'm open to that possibility. But let's start having that conversation on abortion, and let's start on Planned Parenthood and what it means to create the next generation, or almost creating, right? So
on abortion, that topic,
I would say there's a lot of conversations we need to have in the manosphere, and there's a lot of different opinions. Yeah.
On the topic of abortion, what was your response
Yes,
to Trump smashing the crown jewel of feminism about 2 years ago, Roe v. Wade? Obviously, the feminists do not like this. They are still bitching about it to this day, and will probably bitch about it to the end of time. What was your response to it and your view of that event, though?
I mean, it's a good symbolic gesture. I don't think it's going to change anything, but there's a 1-2 punch of abortion and mass migration. So if you want a classic heritage America, we need to encourage um, the middle class, the lower class, the heritage American class, the bearers of the American culture to have children. And insofar as they're not having children, America is going to be replaced by a different demographic. So if you want the conservative America that's represented by your flag, you need to make sure that American women have children. And once they start having children, you're not going to have to import all these people. And so if they're importing all these people, it means that the women of 20 years ago had too many abortions. That's just the economics of it. And that's why, conservatives aren't going to cut off abortion. I guess rescue, and he outlawed abortion, I think, in the 60s. And so all the children who weren't aborted then overthrew him as a dictator in the 80s. So the joke is that by outlawing abortion, you could produce a population that's going to overthrow you.
And what dictator or who was
so
that?
That's an interesting dynamic as well. He was the last communist dictator of Romania. Oh. So if you look at Andrew Tate's mother, she was probably a result of no abortions. So would Andrew Tate's Romanian grandmother have aborted his mother if it wasn't for a communist?
It's a good question.
I ask the questions, I don't have the answers sometimes, but yeah, it's.
What's your view of just like kind of a right-wing, so I guess, peaceful revolution where we enslave all women and get these sluts back in the kitchen? Because white women are obviously like pandas; they're too stupid to breed.
You gotta psyop them into having more children, and Mustache Man psyoped his women into having more children, and he would give out awards for having a lot of children. In Russia, they do the same thing. Korea is about to do the same thing, right? So you have to somehow economically incentivize it, and you have to culturally incentivize it. And it's been done successfully before, right? Transitions where the women of a certain culture don't produce enough children, and you're going to merge with another race, right? You're going to get demographically replaced or demographically integrated. So I guess Mormons are good at having kids, but those fertility programs have worked before. And the question is, how can they be implemented on a political level or on a cultural level? One of the good benefits right now is the culture is crashing. So P. Diddy's lube storage facility has been exposed. A lot of people think it wasn't lube, it was GHB, so he could roofie people. So once the Hollywood culture crashes, that could be an opportunity to start pushing another culture before they can throw something else on. But Muslims are really good at having kids, and so they know, like, if you talk to a radical Muslim, they're going to say that we can fight through the womb, and they're open about it. If people who I've talked to, they're very, very open about that. And so there are cultures who understand this, and they are pushing in that direction through that vector.
Yeah, and very successfully. The Muslims are doing that in France and Britain and Germany and stuff. They're just outbreeding the native population, and inevitably they're going to replace them and destroy them, genocide them, or they're going to throw the Pope off the Eiffel Tower or something at this rate.
I mean, the Pope isn't really fighting it. The Pope's welcoming it, right? So if that were to happen, he contributed to his own free fall. I would argue.
I've been trying to get AI to make Muslims throwing the Pope off the Eiffel Tower, but it keeps blocking me on Twitter, the Twitter grok AI.
You gotta be better. Like, it has to be like Muslim man standing on top of Eiffel Tower gives Pope a back massage. You know?
Yeah, you got to be clever to work around it.
You got to be clever to work around it. So
now, in your book, you talk about towards the end of your book, in chapter 3, section 2, fucking femcells and the goblin pussy. So, what is that section about, and what is a femcell, and what is a goblin pussy? I don't know what a goblin pussy is. You know, I think a lot of guys don't.
So what the argument I make in that post is that your main competitor right now sexually isn't other men, it's the girl's poverty. So in order for a woman to be on the sexual marketplace, to be dressed in a way where she's comfortable presenting herself sexually, social access, right? Now, with the decline of the middle class, that's no longer happening, right? So there's a lot of very attractive women who are incredibly poor. And so they just sit at home and they rot on Netflix because they've been priced out of any kind of social activity. So understand that a lot of attractive women are in Netflix poverty. And so they're a goblin. So I maybe it's depressing, maybe it's not, but I think that's the reality we live in. How to sleep with hopefully very attractive poor girls. And you got to pull her out of her Netflix masturbation cave into some kind of viable social activity. That's the reality of the post-pandemic world. Is we, the middle class, are here, and time to sleep with goblins, I guess.
Yeah.
The sexual market right now is really gritty. Yeah.
As a final section I wanted to cover, talk to me about Boats and Hoes. What is Boats and Hoes about?
Boats and Hoes is a lot of women will sleep with you if you make them look cool to their friends. And if you could rent a boat for $1,000 and get her in a cool bikini, she can post cool bikini pictures and make her friends and ex-boyfriends jealous. And so the boat is a really, really strong angle because it gets you Tinder pictures, which are very, very strong. And it also gets women the social validation that they're looking for other women. You know, I'm going to argue that a lot of times men don't get laid because of their attractiveness. They get laid because you're going to be a good tool for social validation. So if you can rent a boat with your friends and she can use that to socially validate herself as a cool girl, that's going to lead to sex. So instead of looking at it in the old manosphere framework of I'm top percent this, I'm attractive, I do XYZ, I spit game. Women don't exist in physical space. It's reality of the virtual. And if you can feed her virtual, that's how you're going to get sex. You're playing a completely different game than 15 years ago. So get that boat, get those boat pics, and help her out, and she'll help you out. Like that.
So a lot of this information is useful for guys looking to bang quasi-artistic, phone-tarded sluts. But what would you say to guys who have it in mind to build a family anywhere in the world, whether it's America, Mexico, or anywhere else? How can they use this information for that life plan that a lot of men are going to want to do? I have a family now, and I always have wanted one, for example.
So if you want a conventional family, be open to getting it in a different flavor. So maybe you're going to get it in a white Mexican flavor. Maybe you're going to get it in a white Colombian flavor. Maybe you're going to get it in a Polish or Ukrainian flavor, right? So the American family is really, really overpriced, but you can get a deal on something that is similar, but has a slightly different arrangement, right? So look at Eastern Europe, look at the wealthier parts of Latin America, and you can live that lifestyle, but it's not going to go exactly in the way that you thought it was. Just be open to those different vectors.
You're saying pussy's on sale basically in Poland, parts of Latin America, and stuff like that. It's on discount right now.
Work on finding the sales. Work on understanding the market. Right? Just you go to money's on, gonna make sure it's money. You got Amazon or all the Ukrainian work the sales, because that's what Warren Buffett does, and you're in a sexual marketplace. So instead of being an autist and focusing on yourself and providing value, right? Focus on finding the sales. Focus on those advantages. And I think that's a very big message in the book. And for some reason, in all the years of the manosphere, I've never heard it. Ever, 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 ever.
Yeah, you put it in sharp economic terms that I think is very unusual for the manosphere. Expat stuff, traveling, banging women. I've seen this since like 2010, 2011. Manosphere specific stuff, coaches and offering courses on how to do this and all that. Even the Euro Tour would be a good example. Back in 2011, it went for many years. It was like a 10-day tour around Eastern Europe, basically, teaching guys how to actually go out and bang, women in that part of the world, and encouraging them to consider this kind of alternative lifestyle. But definitely not in the terms you're saying it, and looking at it much bigger picture, I think. And I didn't do that. And I found that I didn't have to do that, but I think a lot of guys really should consider doing that. America has the sexual marketplace here is like catastrophically fucked up, and navigating it is really, really hard to find a decent woman.
There's this channel, it's called Nomad Capitalist, right? So look at Armenia, look at Georgia, the country. There's a lot of places with amazing traditional women who want a traditional home, but you're going to get a much, much better deal in those cultures, and they're going to appreciate you a lot more. And so you're going to get what you want, but it's going to be in a different configuration, and if you're willing to move with the current, you could do really, really well. So I guess that's the hopeful aspect of this whole situation.
That's a really good way to put it, actually, flowing with the current. Like, you can fight against it, but it takes an enormous amount of effort to do that. And I was able to do that, but not everyone's going to be able to do that, is the reality of it. Like, it's really, really hard. And, to do that, I had to go out and like talk to almost 7,000 women and bang a bunch of fucking sluts and navigate through this minefield of retarded women, hot women, but retarded women,
Right. So, there's a certain quality of, let's say, woman, right? And if you were in Poland, would you really have to go through 7,000? No.
Yeah, definitely not.
So you swam against the current, and maybe that made you very strong, and maybe you learned a lot, right? But if you go with the current and you have remote income, you could be in these places where no one's making an American salary, like Eastern Europe. Now that I'm saying it, I think Georgia and Armenia are gonna be on the up, especially Georgia.
But these countries have also serious.
Really believe in Georgia.
Guys have to start looking at.
I think Colombia's going to do well. I think Mexico's going to do well. Yeah.
Ukraine was the big thing in the manosphere in the late 2010s, 2018, 2019. All these guys were like, you move to Ukraine, move to Ukraine. And no doubt Ukrainian women are beautiful. Like, there's a bunch of them in Poland that I saw. But of course, these people, some of them did move to Ukraine, and then they're raving about it. And then boom, you get invaded by Russia, and it's a fucking war zone, and they're fleeing and freaking out. There's still tweets up from 2020 or 2021 or whatever. And it was hilarious seeing these dating experts running for their lives from the Russian military, when just 2 years previously, it was like the best thing since sliced bread. So obviously World War III happening in Europe in particular is like a major thing that you got to think about too. You there?
Yeah, I'm here. I mean, that's capitalism, right? So what I would say is, if you look at BlackRock really invested in Ukraine, right? It's the same way that BlackRock invested in Ukraine, those PUAs invested in Ukraine, right? So know when to buy, when to sell, right? So if you look at crypto, if you look at all those shit coins, so just understand that if things are going really well, know when to sell. Okay, you went to Ukraine, you found a beautiful woman. Okay, let's go, leave, right? It's not, we're not dealing with a 2003 Amazon that's going to get better and better and better and better. You're going to be, some of these countries are Doge coins, right? That you can pump and dump a woman. You can also pump and dump a country, right? So understand that as things get more volatile, markets become more volatile. And when you start trading, either financially or sexually, in a less developed economy, things are going to move faster. So there's a much higher return and there's a much higher risk, right? So yeah, those sexpats fled from their lives from the Russian military, and BlackRock is running for its life. But we're not in a stable economy. There's no, what is it, Microsoft, Apple, Amazon, where you could get consistent returns. I think those days are over, and you're going to have to fly in, fly out. I'm highly recommending you get a second passport. And that's just the economy. You're in a very, very volatile economy right now. And that volatile economy is going to trickle down into the sexual economy. Mm-hmm. So hopefully none of them got shot. Remember there was this guy, Coach Red Pill?
Yeah, he's dead.
I forgot his real name. He was like a trained Coach Red Pill, Gonzago. And he moved to Ukraine. And he started speaking out against Ukraine. And Ukraine was trained by the Russian KGB. And he was hit with Russian KGB tactics, right? So when you jump in on these different opportunities, understand that there's an upside, but there's a huge risk or cost. And when you take risk, you need to be mindful of those risks. In Ukraine does not have a history of freedom of speech. Neither does Russia. Neither does anywhere in the Soviet Union, former Soviet Union, right? So when you go to Eastern Europe, there is no freedom of speech. There has never been a freedom of speech in Eastern Europe. And if you act against their culture, big men are going to shit. But if you do what that guy did, something very similar is going to happen. So when you move to other cultures, you need to respect that other culture, because that other culture is in control. And we can talk about the multipolar world and the decline of American hegemony, but understand that when you expat, you are no longer in American culture, and that's an extra risk that you're taking. I don't want to say anything against Ukraine or Russia or any Latin American culture. I'm warning the expats. You expat, you're under another culture, and you can be under very, very high risk. And so I know it happened to that Chilean banker, but I think it's secretly happening to a lot more of those expats, and they're not living happily ever after.
Yeah. But hey, as far as Russia goes, man, I'm rooting for Putin, you know?
I think Russia is making a lot of gains right now from what I'm seeing. And from what I hear from Alex Jones, they're trying to escalate the war so Russia can't solidify its gains. But I think if we can get through this election without any huge escalations, that war is going to freeze and it's going to be over. So
yeah, definitely.
And I think BlackRock's going to lose. But yeah, I guess
Big Daddy Trump, man.
Hopefully. What I'm saying is, we're in a volatile market. You're going to have to take more risk. When you take more risk, be mindful. Buy my book so you know how to navigate that world. Keep listening to Anthony, and that way you can benefit from the risk instead of dealing with special services of foreign countries.
Get the book, guys. Awesome book.
Perfect.
And you have a new
Thank you so
publisher
much,
now?
Anthony.
Is it Lulu or another company you got now?
No, I'm printing in Eastern Europe. And when you buy the book, you're going to be getting it from Eastern Europe. So that's what's about to take place, because Lulu has found my content offensive.
Wow. That sucks, man.
So yeah.
I recommend, I know I've told you, but I'll harp on it again. You should really check out Substack. I think you could actually make it a while without getting banned.
I'll jump on Substack, order my book. You're going to get a package from Eastern Europe, from a culture that either believes in freedom of speech or doesn't care about what I wrote about. So
cool.
Be on the lookout for that.
Thanks for your time, man. I really appreciate having you on the show today.
Thank you so much. I always appreciate you so much. Amazing show.
Thanks for tuning in, guys. I'll see you next time, probably on the Dream Lounge, Dream Show. Maybe we'll have Gabe Luboil back on. We'll see. Peace out, everybody.